That'll be good. I can do this quick.
Mm-hmm.
So this is our long run, oops, aggregate supply curve. This is our short run aggregate supply curve, and this is our aggregate demand curve. So it's important to notice that aggregate demand doesn't have a short run or a long run. It's just, it is what it is. So I'm going to do green for an increase, just to kind of help us keep it straight. I'm going to start with aggregate demand, if that's okay. So we'll come down here. This is an increase in aggregate demand. So we're going to see what happens. Increase aggregate demand. So in the short run, our new equilibrium is going to be right here, because that's where demand and supply meet. And in the long run, it's going to move out here. So in terms of output, we can see in the short run, there's a little bit of an increase. And there's going to be also an increase in price because we started here. Since we moved from here to here. So what that means is there's going to be a decrease in unemployment. And an increase in price. That's short run. In the long run, we're going to move out to here. And what happens is we're actually going to shift back to where we were. So that's what we're talking about with like the pizzas. If you have a huge line of people outside your store, you might work super hard to try and please every customer in the short run. But eventually you're going to have to go back to what you can actually handle. You know, we can't work 100-hour week every week or we die. So we return back, but we increase the price to try and thin out the customers and get more money. So in the long run, we have another increase in price, but a decrease an increase in unemployment. But it's actually no change in unemployment because we're just returning back to the same level that we were at. So it's two steps. So short run, we shift out a little bit more output, little increase in price. In the long run, it's a big increase in price, but back to the same level of output. So no change in output. Now, when we look at a decrease, I'll do this one in red. It's going to be the exact opposite. So we come down here. We start here. This is the original equilibrium. Short runs over here, long runs all the way down here. So if we look at it in the short run, we had a fall in prices and a fall in output. So erase for a second. So in the short run, we're going to have a decrease in price and a increase in unemployment. In the long run, we're going to have even a bigger decrease in price, but no change to unemployment because it's just going to shift back. So it's the same idea. You know, if something happens to where less people show up outside your pizza shop, so you have more pizzas than there are people shopping, then you might make less at the beginning, but eventually you'll make what you can make in a week and just lower the price, because you'd rather sell more at a lower price than sell that much less at a higher price, because you want to, it's all about maximizing profit. And maximizing profit happens when marginal revenue equals marginal cost, but it's also where supply and demand intersect. For the purposes of this class, we're going to talk a lot about just aggregate supply, aggregate demand. We're talking about a whole economy. So where we are on those two lines. So first, we follow the short run aggregate supply curve, we end here, then it's going to come back to what the economy can do in the long run. All right, so you can come back and review this, and I will start graphing out what happens when we change the other curve.
Yes. Actually, I have work in 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, I need to be
Okay.
Get ready. So, but I like it when you explain it and you record it.
Okay.
So
I'll just finish this video explaining, and then I'll post it for you. I'll probably just put it on Canvas so other students can watch it too, if that's okay.
yeah, that would be great. So, is this okay if you like do the other 3 by record it and post it?
Yep, I'll do
And
that.
then I can rewatch it again until I understand it.
Sure.
Yeah. And could you just tell also that what the test will be, what is we gonna have, like you just said that we need to prepare for the how to calculate GDP capita. Can you tell that also?
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Connor. You are the best. You are such a good tutor. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. I'll get this posted up for you.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Have a good day. Bye bye.
You too. Bye.
All right. I will just finish this up for anyone who would like a little extra study help. We already did changes in the demand curve. Now we're going to do changes in the supply curve. I'm just going to get this graphed out again real quick. That's our long run aggregate supply. That's going to be our aggregate demand right here. And now remember the short run is going to come right through our equilibrium point, but it's going to be rounded out like this. All right, so first let's do a change in supply, a positive change. So this is a shift outward to the right. I'm going to mark this with green. Green just helps me keep it straight that we're increasing. All right, so now this is marked by some, market factor that's positive, a positive shock to the economy. This could be a tech boom. This could be a number of things. There's a great list a couple lectures ago in one of Dr. Cooley's slides that has everything graphed out, whether it's a negative shift or a positive shift to either supply or demand. So right now we're talking about all those things that are a positive shift to long run aggregate supply. So the economy was creating where the black line is in terms of output, and now we're shifted out to the right, we're creating more. So this is growth. So it's important to note, oops, I'm not sure what I just did, but it's important to note that the short run curve moves alongside the long run curve. So there's going to be a new short run curve that comes to this new equilibrium point. So unlike demand, where we have to think about the long run and the short run, when we have changes in supply, we're really just considering one change. So our old equilibrium was here, and now it's going to be found right here on aggregate demand. So if we're looking at output and we're looking at prices, we started here and now we're down to here. Oops, sorry, my curve is a little wonky. But it's a decrease on the price side. And if we look at output, it should be kind of obvious, an increase in supplies and increase in output, right? The economy is doing more. It's expanding. So there's an increase in output and a decrease in prices. So if we think about this, an increase in output, that's going to be associated with an increase in GDP. You would assume probably an increase in GDP per capita. And then in terms of our macroeconomic problems that we're trying to solve, it's that y-axis, that output axis, that's going to be associated with the unemployment rate. So increase in output, or an increase in y, is going to equal a decrease in unemployment. And this will become kind of obvious too as you think about it, right? If the economy is doing more, there's more businesses creating more opportunity, more value. There's going to be more demand for employees to fill positions and aid in that expanding economy. So because the economy's grown, there's more jobs, there's more employment. It's kind of backwards. I know it's kind of annoying. We use unemployment rather than employment because employment's a direct relationship. An increase in output, increase in employment, decrease, decrease. But when we swap it, it becomes an inverse relationship. So an increase in output, decrease in unemployment. It can be a little confusing, but if you just start to really think about this graph and thinking about what's changing in the economy, it'll become really clear to you. And I would encourage all of you to graph, practice, get a piece of paper and just make these lines, make a little chart. I graph all 4 in my notes and I refer to them all the time when I'm helping to answer questions, just because it's I don't have the kind of brain, I can't think. If you ask me like what happens if there's a drought in Southern California, what's going to happen to the wine industry? It's hard for me to think in terms of prices and output right away, but when I graph it out, I can answer those questions. So I would encourage all of you to become really familiar and really comfortable with this. So that's an increase. Now I'm going to swap colors here to red. Red's going to mark our decrease in supply. So this would be something like a drought, right? Where capital is being destroyed, where the economy is being reduced, some natural disaster or something like that. So we have the long run aggregate supply curve shifting to the left, and the short run aggregate supply curve is going to move with it through the intersection with aggregate demand, right? Because we're not talking about 2 steps, just 1. All right, so that's what happens. And now you just got to think, what is the change in the equilibrium? So we started here where I circled in green, I'll circle in red, and now we've moved up to here. So in terms of output and in terms of price, what has happened? Well, we started at this green line, now we're at this red line, so that's an increase. We started at this green line, now we're out, and this black line, now we're out to this red line. That's a decrease. So we have a rise in unemployment and a rise in prices. So it should be pretty obvious that it's the inverse of what I wrote in green here. So decrease in Y equals increase in unemployment. And then and that was associated with an increase in price. And I hope you all remember that when we talk about prices rising together in a general aggregate manner, that's called inflation. So what we saw is when we shifted the long run aggregate supply curve to the left, which is a decrease, a negative shock to that curve, we had a rise in unemployment and a rise in inflation. So it's a double negative. 2 bad things happen at once. Our 2 biggest headaches as macroeconomists are employment, or more importantly, the unemployment rate and inflation. When you have both of those, that's a double whammy. That's worst case scenario, bad things, stagflation. And that's what happens when you have a negative shift on the supply curve. When you have a positive shift, it's 2 good things, right? Unemployment went down and prices also fell. That's very good in terms of solving our headache. So just remember that. And I hope this was helpful.